in this video, we are taking a moon, let's just call it a moon, and dropping the most vile, infectious, deadly, dangerous creatures onto this moon. Anything on this moon prior to our little experiment here will be erased from existence, probably. But what we're really testing here is to see kind of what the food chain looks like once we take these creatures, which are all kind of apex creatures in their own right, and putting them together. So let's get right into the first one. So the first one we have here is the Thanator from Avatar. This one, we're kind of starting strong right out of the gate because this creature is deceivingly powerful in my opinion. When I'm watching Avatar, I'm kind of picturing it as just a souped up tiger or jaguar, or I guess it'd be like a Black Panther in this case. But it's a lot worse than that because when I look at the panther, or the Thanator I should say, and Jake, the main character of Avatar, I can tell it's large, but my brain does not take into account that Jake himself is very big. So what we're really looking at here is like an elephant-sized cat, and not just any cat, but like top of the food chain cat, like a lion, like a tiger, except in this case it's 10 times the size. So this one, it has to go high already. We can always bring it down later, but I'm gonna at least put it in Predator. I don't think it's quite Apex. It could be, but for now I'm putting it in Predator, just because it's made to be a predator. I mean, big cats are the quintessential predators of Earth, so I think they deserve to at least start off our roster here pretty high on the list. So let's jump into the next one. Oh, okay. So the next one we have is the Rancor. This is a very different type of creature than a Thanator. I mean, obviously big teeth, big claws. They're all predators here. But I'm gonna actually, nothing against Star Wars, but just because of how slow a Rancor is, despite its size, it's giving me Prey vibes. Like, how Prey is typically bigger and slower than the predator that's hunting it? That is very much kind of the relationship I'm getting, especially since we have Thanator already in as predator. So I'm going to put it as Prey. Now, I may not be familiar with like the deep Star Wars lore on Rancors. I know they're very intelligent. They bond well with some sort of master, but that doesn't really help them here. I don't think when a Thanator shows up, which is practically just as big as them, but has the agility and reflexes of a big cat, I think the Rancor is getting cooked. So I'm putting it as Prey. We'll see what happens as we move down the list. All right, next we have the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. If it was the Demogorgon from D&D, that would be going to Apex Predator immediately. But we are avoiding like cosmically powerful beings just to kind of even the playing field and make this moon-sized experiment make any sense whatsoever. If we threw in like Tyranids, Eldrazi, like demon lords of the D&D multiverse, then it's gonna break our experiment. So we're not throwing in the Flood from Halo, let's just say that. But we have the Demogorgon from Stranger Things now, which can in some ways break our kind of closed experiment here, because they can travel interdimensionally. But I do want to put a caveat here. I don't think I'm going to give them that power for this. And hear me out. I'm not just taking it away arbitrarily. I believe that power of theirs, where they can enter the Upside Down, perhaps pull their prey into it, and then also come back to our dimension, that power is linked to Vecna in Stranger Things. I believe that they were a species of their own before they got mind controlled by the Mind Flayer and by Vecna, And it was only when they formed that connection that they gained that ability. So at this point, I think we're just taking base Demogorgon species, still vicious, but not interdimensional. Now, I don't think it matters much, and I'll tell you why in a minute. First, let's just do base Demogorgon. So base Demogorgon is going to probably get very little very little food here because all their food sources can kill them in a 1v1 fight, at least most of them. So I am going to put them in prey. They possibly would go extinct, but that interdimensional ability would be the only thing keeping them alive. Even if they had that, though, let's say they could hypothetically pull their prey into the upside down. I think all they would be doing is pulling something that is going to take over the upside down. If they pulled in a Rancor by some miracle, that Rancor is then killing them and now owns the upside down. Like that goes for everything. So I don't think anything matters regarding the Demogorgon's powers. They are going in at least the prey category. And I honestly, if they can't figure out a way to stay hidden, they'd go extinct pretty quick. It's not like they reproduce quickly. But for now, we'll leave them in prey. We'll give them some respect, I guess. This next one, though, speaking of respect, I will be giving no respect to this one. So these are the crawlers from the movie The Descent. Now, this one is really a throw-in to show our boundaries, and unfortunately for the crawlers, they are going to be the bottom of the boundaries here. So I'm going to instantly throw them into extinct, and in case you don't already know, I will explain why. The crawlers here, while they may look scary, are essentially just humans that, as cavemen, never left the caves, right? That's more or less how their creator described them. So as you would expect, they're blind. They rely on a lot of other senses like hearing, and that's about it. I mean, they are stronger than a human, a modern human, but there's really nothing else going for them. So they would be prey, except they're gonna get so roasted from everyone else on this list that I'm putting them in extinct because they're not going to last long. I mean, they're just people with less clothing and no eyesight. Like you're done. You're not making it, right? I wouldn't even be able to make it in this world, let alone a blind version of me, right? No, it's not happening. So they are extinct. All right, next on the list. Oh man, we have a fan favorite. This one is such a hard one to place, and it is the Xenomorph. So obviously from the Alien series, Xenomorphs are probably the most well known on this list. Probably they have the most clout, and for good reason. The reason I find them tricky is in 1v1 fights, the Xenomorph is not winning most of them. The Xenomorph may make it a tie with their acid blood. You know, if someone eats the Xenomorph, well, that's the last thing they're going to eat, right? There's nothing digesting a Xenomorph blood, especially an entire body of one. So they're not getting preyed upon. I'm at least putting them into survivors. So let's go ahead and throw them there. Now we really need to determine if they are going to be more than that. And again, the reason it's tough is because in a 1v1, they're honestly not that powerful. But as a species, they are unstoppable, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know what creature, on this list and beyond, could possibly wipe them out completely. I mean, obviously, if something was cosmically powerful, they could. But no, anything this level, they're not getting rid of the Xenomorphs for good. So, can they become a predator? And I think the answer is yes. But for now, I'm going to leave them in Survivor purely because I don't see a Xenomorph really taking down a Thanator. And let's just see what else we get on that Predator stage before we move them up or down. But I think right now, they would be survivor at least. I'm not putting them in apex predator or predator yet, but I think if given enough time, then they would take over the moon. They would. I think they would. We're just not going to do that time scale at the moment, if that makes sense. Okay, let's jump right into the next one. Okay, these are one of my favorites. These are also going to be a little controversial. I think people have different ways of power scaling them for completely justified reasons, because it's a little bit wishy-washy on what exactly they have achieved. But we have the Death Angels from A Silent Place, or A Quiet Place. Same difference. And they they're wild. So what we're going to be dealing with here are herbivores, actually, that just hate. They're just so hateful. They don't want anything around them that's making noise, at least. So what they're going to be doing is hearing literally anything and swarming that thing until it's dead. And they are very capable of killing pretty much anything on this list. They are tough enough to have survived their own planet getting destroyed, and also tough enough to survive the journey from that planet to our planet. I don't know if they're tough enough to survive a point blank nuke, although some people say that they are. The reason I would say they might not be is you might think a planet being blown apart would suffice as nuclear level, resistance, but hypothetically, if they were on like a certain piece of the planet and the planet internally exploded and then they were just kind of thrust into space, they really just had to survive that momentum and not like the point blank force of a nuclear warhead, right? Like those are different in my opinion. So I don't know, but either way, they're very tough. Let's just say that. So I'm not going to call them prey. I mean, I don't know what on this list is going to want to get in a fight with them. So I'm at least putting them in survivor like Alien, but they're not even literally predators. They are herbivores, I believe. They just are really hateful ones, despite them having a maw of teeth. I have never seen one eating their prey. Now, maybe I'm going to have to double check that. Check me in the comments, but I think they're herbivores. So they just want to chill. But they don't chill if you make any noise. But I digress. So are they predators? I don't think they really are. They just don't have the mindset. They're not trying to kill for food. They're not working together in a predatory sense. They're just all collectively hating on everyone else. So we're going to put them as survivors because they're just impossible to kill for the most part. But I don't know. I may even put them as prey, honestly, because they don't reproduce too fast either. At least we don't know that they do. Anyway, I don't know. We'll come back to this one. This is a tough one as well. Okay, next we have another tough one, skull crawlers from Kong Island, or Skull Island, I should say. They are, I'd say, anatomically speaking, disadvantaged. They're like, these bipedal walking heads that are like off balance at all times. They also have just a terrible physiology where they are starving 24/7, causing them to be so desperate for food that they're willing to just latch on to King Kong's fist and let him pull out their organs. So they're a wild card. And I am either going to say they are an apex predator due to their just complete size advantage and like mindset advantage. Like they are going to kill you or die trying. And in this case, they probably won't die trying. So I want to say apex predator, but just getting real deep with them, they would probably go extinct because they are going to eat everything until there is nothing left and then go extinct. But I don't think as of now our roster is going to warrant them going extinct. So we'll see if it changes. But for now, I'm putting it as the apex predator of our group. They're so big. They are so big. Even compared to a Thanator, nothing is killing it. If anything can eat a xenomorph, it's this thing. I don't think they can, but this would be the thing. So I don't know. Okay, well, you know what? I take that back. There is something else that might be able to eat a xenomorph, and that is our next contestant, a a tremor worm. So this is from Tremors. They're called Graboids, and they have a very tough stomach. I will give them that. Tough enough to eat a xenomorph? Maybe. Maybe it is. I kind of doubt it, but maybe. So already we're looking at something that if it can eat a xenomorph, it can eat everything else. So I'm not saying it can eat a xenomorph, but it can at least eat a demigorgon and maybe not a whatever the Star Wars one is called. I'm blanking now. Rancor, but just because of their size, but they're definitely eating the crawlers from the Descent. So anyway, right now they have a lot of food sources. I would even say if they could possibly catch a Death Angel by surprise and eat it. Although it better swallow quickly, or it's not going to be lips later. But I'm putting it in Predator. It's just got a very unique way of hunting that I think is well suited in this situation, because it's underground. Nothing except maybe a skull crawler is going to have any contact with it, and the only time things will have contact with a graboid is when the graboid wants to have contact. So I'm putting it as a predator. I think there's enough said there. Maybe we'll drop it later if we get something that can actually eat it, but I don't think anything can. Okay, next we have raptors from Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. Oh man, I love raptors, right? Like, I don't want them to be low on this list, but they are. They definitely are. They have high intelligence, very, very similar to other things on this list, like a xenomorph and a skullcrawler. I would even say xenomorph and skullcrawlers might have even more intelligence. At least a skullcrawler does, given that the skullcrawler looked at a dude with grenades, not ever seeing a grenade before, and knew not to eat him, despite being starving. Right? Like that's problem solving. Right? That's intelligence. Raptors and xenomorphs can think strategically. They can kind of solve puzzles. They can open doors, that sort of thing. Xenomorphs can do a lot more than that. But I don't think that sort of intelligence is enough here, because you can be as smart as you want and as strategic as you want, but if you try to kill one of these things, like you're not gonna make it. Try to kill a xenomorph and see what happens. Try to kill a Thanator and see what happens. Even if you do the clever girl, distraction and then come in from the side move, it's not ending well. So I'm putting them as prey. Maybe they're smart enough to not go extinct somehow, but they're prey. I don't even think they're surviving, really. All right. Next, we have a big one. So bringing in some fantasy here. We've had a mix of sci-fi, a little mix of just kind of like your run-of-the-mill creature sort of thing. Not really sci-fi, but just kind of like modern world. But now we're fantasy. We are bringing in a dragon. So I'm not talking like Smog, magical, hyper-intelligent, sentient dragon. I am talking about your animalistic, Game of Thrones-esque dragon that flies and breathes fire and just wants to eat stuff, right? A dragon of any type is probably going to be smart. I mean, can you think of any dragon in any fictional universe that isn't at least very smart from an animal perspective? There's none. So it's going to be very smart. It's also going to be probably bigger than everything here except maybe a skull crawler, but it's probably going to at least be the same size. And it has two massive advantages. One is flight, which means these things are not eating it, right? Nothing's sneaking up on it. I mean, I guess hypothetically you could sneak up on it, but it's flying away if it needs to. And its biggest advantage, I'd say, is the flight paired with its ability to breathe fire. I mean, pretty much nothing counters it. It's just a complete counterspell to every other strategy or move set that we have on the roster here. So I'm throwing it on Apex Predator, and in fact, I'm putting it on the top of Apex Predator. And in fact, I think now that we have a dragon, I think skullcrawlers are going extinct, because I think dragons are smart enough to do a Kong move where they will recognize skullcrawlers as a huge problem and kill them all. But also they are just formidable enough to outcompete the skullcrawler. I mean, if the skullcrawler manages to kill everything else, then the dragon will die with it. But I think the skullcrawler is going extinct. It's going to eat everything in its niche, and then it's going to die. And if the dragon has the same niche, then the dragon is going to prey upon the skullcrawlers and just force them to burrow underground. Yeah, skullcrawlers are kind of losing by a formality. They're just a little bit too much of a murderous creature. Like they're overkill. Dragons are perfect. They perch on the top of mountains. They hunt their prey like a Thanator might, but they have wings and they also have fire. They're very strong. They're very smart. They're very big. Yeah, dragon's the apex predator. I will be surprised if anything takes dragon off of its pedestal here. Okay, we're nearing the end, so we're gonna possibly make some switches, or maybe we'll keep it how it is. But the next we have is a giant spider. Yet another fantasy, I'd say, creature. I'm sure there's some example of this in sci-fi somewhere, because it's just so all over the place. But generally speaking, we're talking about the animalistic type again. So maybe think Harry Potter size, but not, talking to you like a human. It's more like Lord of the Rings, Shelob, right? Where you have this just massive arachnid that, just like a normal spider, nests, waits for prey to come into their lair, and then ambushes them with traps and overwhelming strength all at once, perhaps toxins, some sort of like agent that will dissolve them, all sorts of things that are just like overwhelming, and it's going to kill them. This one's tough because I think, again, in like an open field, the giant spider is going to freak out and not going to want to fight anything one-on-one. But they are specialized. Like, they know what they're doing. Spiders have been around for a long time. They know how to survive and how to eat. They are going to go into some crevice somewhere. It'd be a large crevice, but, it's a crevice. And they're just going to wait until something that likes caves walks in there and becomes their prey. And let's talk about what that might even be. I mean, so the crawlers from the descent are gone. Spiders are eating every single one of them. If a raptor, for whatever reason, wanted to go in a cave, it would get killed, but raptors don't generally do that. They're kind of just in the jungle, you might say. So I don't know about that, but a Demogorgon would walk into a spider's nest and die. A Rancor is not going into a crevice, so irrelevant. A silent place creature, the Death Angel, you'd think would like caves because they're blind, but they just evolved on a dark planet. So they just kind of have that hubris about them, that like confidence of like, yeah, I may be blind, but I own this place. I'm not going to be going and hiding in any caves. I am going to be wandering wherever I want to wander, and if you as so much make a sound, you're done. That's their mindset. So I don't see them going into a cave, especially if they eat plants. Like, what? Unless they want some mushrooms or something, but it's not going to happen. So that's irrelevant. Xenomorphs hive as well. They love to nest up. That's where they put eggs, that sort of thing. This is probably the most interesting encounter so far for the giant spider, because a giant spider, hypothetically, depending on the spider, could have some sort of chemical reaction available to them in their venom to maybe eat a xenomorph. I mean, I don't know what happens when you dissolve acid, but who knows? All I do know is that it would be a close fight, and eventually that spider will die because xenomorphs are like ants, and ants win in the insect world. So unless you're like a giant murder hornet or something, but even then, ants give them a good fight. So, and you can keep going up the list. I don't know if they're going to be taking down anything higher than that, but they don't need to. So, man, I guess I want to put them in Survivor just because what's killing them, but I feel like Graboids are killing them, Xenomorphs might be killing them, Death Angels might be killing them, Thanators might be killing them, Dragons are definitely killing them, and if Skullcrawlers are around, they're killing them. There's just I don't know. They are spiders, though. I mean, there's a lot of them. This is a really tough one. I'll put it in Survivor. Or maybe I'm going to put it into Prey. I'll put it in at the top of Prey. Because they can probably handle everything below them, but I think in the end they're not gonna they're just gonna be prey. They probably won't go extinct because they're a bug, but anytime they interact with something, if it's not if it's not a baby version of the thing, they're probably gonna die. All right, last one, a synapsid. Okay, this is an exciting one. You probably don't know what this is, because I am pretty sure we're not supposed to know what these are. I won't go too much into that, but this was something I found as a leak. Regardless, I'm digressing. You probably don't know what I'm talking about, but a synapsid, in essence, is picture a chimpanzee with an indestructible head and like a harpoon-like needle that comes out of its mouth to inject neurotoxin and pretty much kill something in a one-shot fashion. But they have this neurological sense around them where they can, like smell, sense neurological activity in the brains of everything around them. So that allows them to not only sense the things, but interpret like the specific neurons firing in the brain. And it kind of causes them to have some crazy abilities, like some ultra instinct style stuff where they can at instant speed react to a creature. And not only that, but are always aware of their visual field, which allows them to constantly remain out of it, making them perfect ambush hunters. Because if everywhere you look, they already knew you were going to look there and have moved. And if you do happen to see one and try to strike it, if they read your mind essentially and knew you were going to punch in the way you did and are already reacting with their fast twitch muscles to go under your arm and jab you with neurotoxin, you're done. But they're up against, the best of the best here. So this is tough. I think because they can perceive everything around them, regardless of whether it's underground, in the air, obviously like next to them, at least to a certain distance, they're at least going to be a survivor because they're just never going to let themselves get hunted, right? If a Thanator is trying to hunt a synapsid, well, the synapsid already knows. It's literally reading its mind, right? Like it can see what the Thanator sees by just picking up on the neurological action potentials that the Thanator's brain is throwing out there. So they're not getting hunted really. I mean, maybe a dragon could come out of nowhere and surprise one. I don't know. Maybe a skull crawler could just smell it from like 40 miles away and just out endure it. And skull crawlers are endurance hunters. They just run forever and they're desperate and persistent. So even if synapsid knew it was coming for it, it may not be able to do anything about it. So there's that. But for the most part, a synapsid is not getting hunted. So it's just a matter of is it a predator? I don't think it's quite predator level because its body is really just the size of like a chimpanzee and probably just as strong as one, which is still strong, but not against these creatures. So it would kind of have a tough matchup even against a xenomorph and a death angel. Its really biggest defense is just being always aware of where its competitors are, so it can strategically move to where it needs to move to survive, and perhaps hunt, but who knows. The fact that it does consume neurological matter makes it have a pretty healthy amount of things to prey upon. But again, it's a matter of killing those things, which I think it can do, just because it's so silent and deadly. But yeah, that's what we have. So let's see if we want to change anything. I'm thinking we might be good. We might be good. Okay, that is our food chain. So it's looking pretty good. Typically, you want more creatures on the bottom than the top. That's typically how it goes. Let me know if there's any creatures that I excluded that you think would be, cool creatures to throw on here. Maybe I'll make some future videos with updates on this moon. Let's call it Biohazard Moon. How about that? Because these are all biohazards. And yeah, just let me know if there's any cool creatures you know of that aren't on here. Yeah, just remember, we're not the only ones experimenting.